Good morning. My name is Jim Bennett. They call me the old gardener. Well, I'm almost 80 years old. At least I'm pushing it. Okay. I've been gardening for an incredible long time, ever since I was about 3 years old. I grew up on a farm down in South Georgia, and I have enjoyed gardening ever since. So glad to have you here. Come on in and walk through my garden with me, but be careful where you step. You may kill some of the weeds. Feel free to stomp on them if you so desire. But today I want to talk to you about a silent killer that probably some of you've never heard of. You may have heard of it, but you don't know what it does. Well, what I want to talk to you about is an eel-like animal that lives in the garden soil everywhere in the United States, from Wisconsin to Louisiana, from California to South Carolina. It's prevalent everywhere. And what it does, it lives in the soil, and in its lifetime, it may not travel more than a half inch, if that far. But it destroys the roots of so many plants. Fruit trees. It can attack apples and peaches and cut the life of the tree down even in half. It attacks tomatoes, okra, lettuce, so many plants in your garden, blueberries and all of the figs. Now, what happens is when the plant is young and vigorous, it doesn't have that much effect on it. And as time goes by, the plants get a little older. The nematode attacks the feeder roots of the plant. That's where they start. And they leave cysts and knots and misshape the root terribly. And the plant cannot get its nutrients that it needs. Now, for the average gardener, basically all you can do is, during the growing season, is make sure the plant gets a lot of water. Especially for okra and tomatoes and lettuce, the water is what carries the nutrients from the roots up. And so make sure that the plant gets watered on a daily basis or on a regular basis, and that's about your only defense against the nematode. There are things you can do, and we'll talk about that later, but they're best done in off seasons when the garden soil is idle. The nematodes are worse in sandy soil, because clay soil and gumbo type soil, they're hard to, they spend their life within an inch or a quarter inch of where they were born. They're spread by, rainwater, washing them and carrying them from place to place. But we don't have to worry about that because they're everywhere. And so here's what we can do about it. The biggest deterrent in my soil, I live in the Carolinas, right on the edge of Georgia. And so sandy soil. And the best thing I've found to do is put organic matter in the soil. And that stops them from migrating. And then I plant a couple of cover crops that actually kills them. There's a canola, and it's a kind of a cross between a turnip and broccoli, something like that. It has a beautiful, wonderful flavor, and it's edible. And whenever I get everything out of the garden, I come in and I plant this cover crop of canola. And you go to buy it, you might want to call it, here in the South, we call it rape. Not a beautiful name. Some people call it rape. And we plant it and let it grow to maturity. And then we come back in, plow it in, disc it in, or till it in to the soil, and it kills the nematodes. It interrupts their systems, and they can't eat and digest the food that is there. And so they starve to death, actually. Not a pleasant thing to think about, but they are destroying your garden. Something else you can do, but it's kind of expensive to do it, is you can make a drench from neem oil and almost have to flood your garden. Now, if you've got a small garden area, it's not that big a problem. But for me, I have almost 2 acres, and that's out of my reach. What is in my reach is the cover crop and the organic matter. I use both. As you can see here, I've got hay mulch. I get the old hay that's a year, 2 years old from the farmers that raise hay in these big round bales, and then I take the bales, separate them, and I put this straw out about 3 or 4 or 5 inches thick in the garden. Not only does it cut down on the weeds, but it also causes the earthworms just to come in, and it brought the earthworm back in great number. Now here's what: not only do you get the earthworms, but you also get the manure from the earthworms, which is a perpetual source of fertilizer that is coming back into the soil on a repeated cycle that helps the plants to grow and stay vigorous. So the basic answer to nematodes is keep watering them, not the nematodes, but the vegetables and the fruit trees. Use a cover crop. Check with your county agent or a master gardener to find out what they may recommend in your area as a cover crop to take care of the nematodes. Because when the plants are young and vigorous, you don't see them. But it cuts down on the tomatoes and okra. It takes 2 months off their lives here in the South. But there are things you can do. There's another thing you can do, and one of those is to look for hybrid plants that are nematode resistant. On tomato plants in the seed catalog and on the back of the seed packets, you'll see where it says VFN, so on. Those are diseases that they are resistant to. When I buy my seeds or order my seeds from a seed catalog, I look at 2 things. I look at the number of days to harvest, because the sooner that I can get my plants to fruiting and ready to harvest, the sooner, the less time I have to wait, and the sooner I can get to preserving them and storing them and giving them to my friends and neighbors. The other thing is I look at the disease resistance. Make sure the disease resistant is for nematodes and different viruses and funguses and early blight, late blight, all of these things. Then go online or go to your county agent or to another gardening friend and ask them about the flavor of these plants. You know, science has just about bled the aroma out of roses. Get beautiful roses, but they don't smell like roses. They smell like whatever else you sprayed them with or what they were growing next to. You know, the same thing's true about tomatoes and apples and these types of things. Check around. Check sources. County agents, I can't say that enough, are a great source. They will have a list of plants that they recommend for your area there at their office, and they'll give you a copy of it. And it'll tell you the days to harvest, the disease resistance, all these things. That's some of the best wisdom that I can share with you. But be aware of nematodes, an eel-like little animal, legless, that destroys the feeder roots of your plants. Root knot nematode is probably the most prevalent. Plant the cover crop, rotate your crops, check and see which plants are resistant to nematode. Take care. God bless you. You know, do something that's great for America this week. I know we got a C-19 going around, the virus. Call a neighbor. See if you can bring them something, especially if they're sick or elderly or both. God bless you. We'll see you in church or the synagogue or the place of worship this Sunday if they're open. And we'll see you back here next week with another great video. Like it for me. This is a new venture for me. And because it's a new venture, I need for you to like it. I need for you to subscribe and keep watching The Old Gardener, Jim Bennett.